The Fantasy Football edition of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the app now and use code SGP. New customers can score $200 in bonus bets instantly when they bet just $5 on any NFL game. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code SGP. We're also brought to you by Game Time. Snag the tickets without the stress. Use promo code SGPN on your first purchase to save $20. Download the Game Time app and use promo code SGPN. We're also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Play the Underdog Pick'em in college or NFL and win up to 20 times in one game. Use promo code SGPN at Underdog Fantasy for a 100% deposit bonus up to $100. Finally, we're brought to you by Hall of Fame Bets, the sports betting research platform for parlays, player props, and game lines. Download the Hall of Fame Bets app or visit hofbets.com. Use code SGPN to get 50% off your first month and start making smarter bets today. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the SGPN Fantasy Football Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Emerson Beery, and I'm happy to be joined by Justin Bruni today. It is week one. How are you doing, my friend?
Doing great. Football is back. Happy week one. Just been relishing in all of the football action, taking all the good with the bad, ready to dive into some waiver wire discussion here.
Yes, we will be doing waiver wire editions normally every Monday throughout the season, but we are doing Sunday because of my schedule this week. So we are tackling the very early waiver wire for those of you doing research tonight into Monday morning, like if you're me doing those early waiver wire picks. Justin, normally I'm leading, the way here a little bit here. Do you want to dive into the first question from one of our listeners before while we get started here?
Yeah, so we're going to be rolling through our mailbag of questions from users who follow us on Twitter, Reddit, Facebook, all the social media. So if you ever have some questions for us, be sure to jump into our Discord. Follow us on Twitter at SGPN Fantasy. Emerson and I are just going to dig into the bag here, just randomly pick out some questions based on waiver wire inquiries. I'm going to start with Cousin Eddie from Twitter, also better known as X. Deion Jackson was awful. Lost my matchup because of his fumbles. Feels like the Colts might sign a free agent. Good to dump him? ? What are your thoughts, Emerson? Deion Jackson wasn't quite the darling that we thought we'd get. Couple of days ahead of the opener of the season. Was kind of a waiver wire darling himself earlier this week.
Starting off strong already today.
Are you there?
Once again, this is the final show this will happen because I do have my live hookup to my Wi-Fi coming shortly. I was just thinking before the show that I didn't talk to Justin about that again. But once again, the second week in a row that my Wi-Fi connection's giving me a little bit of beef. But like I said, that will be fixed this week. I'm connecting live up to my internet and will no longer be faced with this recent internet troubles. But diving into Deion Jackson, yes, I do believe he is droppable. Leonard Fournette and Kareem Hunt are just waiting in the wings to dive bomb somebody's waiver wire pickup this week. However, Zach Moss will be returning shortly. With Deion Jackson performing poorly, I expect Zach Moss to be probably the lead back until Jonathan Taylor returns. And I think Jonathan Taylor, I think he actually does. I'm feeling, just the tea leaves. This is just me speaking, just the vibe that I'm getting out of there is that Jonathan Taylor, I think, will return shortly after week 4. I don't think there's value to be had in holding out this season. I don't think it's going to gain him a lot of money on the market. I think he's best just to make the money that he's going to make this year and then further renegotiate his contract next year. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I can echo that sentiment. I'm good to drop Deion Jackson, especially if it's, like a 12-team league. Maybe in a deeper format, you just like the fact that he had some volume. So maybe in like some 14 team leagues, I may not be dropping him just because I may just want to have someone I know is going to have some value. He's going to have some volume until something, else happens, until we get a domino that falls, whether it is a free agent, whether it's Zach Moss production in week 2, whatever it is. I'm still okay to hold on to him. But if there's, like on my waiver wires, plenty of very friendly names with solid week 1 production that you're looking to, flirt with a little bit, I'm definitely okay with it. There's definitely some names that I saw out there that were more impressive than Deion Jackson. That's for certain.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about some of those. It'll be interesting whether Jonathan Taylor comes back. I only have one team, and it's just one that I was particularly aggressive with, and it was a dynasty team. It was for a player profiler with a lot of those guys, and everybody was going for an early rebuild. So I tried to get a little cute with it. And I took Jonathan Taylor. I think it was, ahead of T. Higgins. He was like the other guy I was really considering. And normally I would go with the wide receiver at that time, but I was thinking like, I'm going to go for it this year because everyone else is falling back. And that has not paid off so far.
Not yet.
Not yet, at least. Before we dive into our next question, though, I just want to give one more shout out to our friends over at DraftKings. Football is back in full swing with betting partner of the NFL. New customers can bet $5 on football and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Nobody's missing out on the action this season. All DraftKings customers can take advantage of 2 new offers every game this September. Get in on the NFL 2-week action with DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the app now and use code SGP to sign up. New customers can bet just $5 and take home $200 instantly in bonus bets. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code SGP. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details and state-specific responsible gambling resources. Bonus bets expire 7 days after insurance. We are also brought to you by Game Time. I am personally buying tickets to a lot of different sporting events throughout the year. And, just thinking about the Chiefs and Denver Broncos tickets that I will be buying, there's no better place to go to than Game Time. It is so easy and fast. It is so much better than going to some of the bigger name sport ticket places that just steal your money. It seems like in the end, buying tickets to your favorite place, like I said, shouldn't be stressful. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun that you're going to have. I am already looking at my Chiefs-Broncos game tickets. Like I said already, I am ready for my Chiefs to take on the Broncos and beat them in their own stadium like they do every single year. Some of the other things that you can see on the Game Time app is flash deals and last-minute tickets, easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event in your area and images of seat views. Game Time is the place for last-minute ticket deals. Forget planning months in advance. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the date of the event. Get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. It's the fastest growing ticket app in the country for a reason. Get images of your seat before you buy so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. Tickets are sent directly to your phone. Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code SGPN for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right. Diving back into it, just want to shout out our buddy John, your big buddy, John Reed. He is back again. Thank you for joining us on the live stream, my friend. All right. Looking at these questions here, this is my favorite one, and it's the one right up at the top. AJ from SGPN Fantasy Football Discord asks, I lost J.K. Dobbins and both Gus Edwards and Justice Hill are available on waivers. Should I target one of them? If so, then who? Kyren Williams and Chuba Hubbard are also available. I'll kick it over to you, Bruni. What are your thoughts on this question from AJ?
First off, it sucks. Rooting for Dobbins, not someone that I drafted a ton of in best ball this summer, but someone that I was definitely rooting for in that revamped Baltimore Ravens offense. Not so sure it's that much revamped, but that's a topic for another day. For this discussion, if you're just lost J.K. Dobbins, my suspicion is that you probably just lost your second or third running back drafted. So not necessarily hitting the panic button just yet. You probably have another running back or two ahead of him. So I don't want to overestimate the situation here. I mean, I know Justice Hill did have 2 rushing touchdowns, but he really didn't do much per carry. Gus Edwards has kind of been that guy. He's someone that I have drafted a lot of, not because I was expecting an injury for Dobbins, but just because of the value that you were getting from him all offseason, whether you were drafting in June or you were drafting last month. Gus Edwards was constantly going at a discount. But I also like what I saw out of Chuba Hubbard. He was another player that I was on throughout the offseason, being undervalued. Kyren Williams, definitely not on my radar. I don't know about you, but not someone that I drafted whatsoever, not a lick of in best ball or redraft or dynasty. I guess the way I would prioritize these guys is probably Gus Edwards, Kyren, Chuba, Justice Hill. I mean, are you banging the drum for Justice Hill after week 1 here?
I'm actually not. I think he certainly should be added. I would spend upwards of, I would say, if I had $100 budget, I'm basing this off of, I would spend somewhere. I would spend like a $7 bid. I would not go over 10%, I think, because if you look at it, I believe he had 6 rushes for 6 yards. Gus Edwards was actually the more effective back, although they split the work. Gus Edwards just didn't get the touchdown. I'm not saying it's going to be Gus, but I wouldn't go overboard and just assume it's going to be Justice Hill. Also, you do have Leonard Fournette and Kareem Hunt sitting in the background. Like I said, one of those players very well could be on the Baltimore Ravens very shortly. It is very sad about J.K. Dobbins, though. The guy cannot catch a break. It's just very sad because he was trying to negotiate for a bigger contract that's likely not going to come. I actually, in my home, I would call it my home league, I guess you could call it, with some of my best friends. That's where I lost J.K. Dobbins. I took him in the 5th round. I had gone started early wide receiver. So I'm a little bit disappointed, but that's also the league where I can get some extra value because it's my friends that I'm playing with instead of these analyst leagues or something like that where no value ever falls. So not in too rough shape. I like how
you just subtly called your friends bums. I like that. That was good. That was great.
It's hard to get them to, they'll be half of them fall off by week 12. They're not setting their lineup. So it's easy pickings, you might say. Going over to Brian from Twitter. Is it worth targeting Calvin Austin III or Allen Robinson, replacing Deontay Johnson in a 16-team league? If not, who is the best option?
Well, that's a tough question as far as the best option in a 16-team league, but I guess I would say no still. But I guess if those guys are available in a 16-team league, then I think, if those are the best options, or if those are the guys had the most production, I guess you could consider it. I guess I would just wait and see on the Deontay Johnson situation. I would wait for more information to come in, see if there is a significant injury. I haven't seen any recent updates on the scenario. Feel like that's a Monday situation. Feel like that's a wait and see type of situation. Between the two, I guess Calvin Austin still, not based off of what I saw, but just based off of the talent. I know Allen Robinson, we've seen a lot from him in the past, but as of late, been just kind of a speck on the radar, we'll say. And I feel like both of their production came from just garbage time. Like, this team was playing from behind big time in this matchup up against San Francisco. They were never really in it. You could even say that, Pickens wasn't getting production down the stretch because of how far out of it they were. But if it's really that narrow, I guess I would give the edge to Calvin Austin. It looks like I do have Emerson back here. Emerson, what are your thoughts on this question here? Yeah, I still can't hear you. Is it me? Is it you? I have no idea. Emerson going to be back soon. We're going to take another question. I wish I had a drink for this episode. Tyler from the SGPN Fantasy Football Discord asks, all of my tight ends are bad. Dalton Schultz, Gerald Everett, Pat Freiermuth. Should I pick up Hayden Hurst? And if so, which tight end should I drop for him? Dalton Schultz did not look very good, but I just have to believe that situation is going to get a little bit better per all my offseason takes. Emerson, you want to try slam dunking here? There he is.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh man, goodness gracious, man. All right, this is the last podcast I'm gonna deal with this internet problems. Like I said,
I'm trying to keep us afloat here, pal.
I appreciate it. Like I said, just go. If I'm frozen, just go. It's me for sure. If don't even question it. It's my side. So just go. I could hear you, but did we get to John Reed's question in the chat about Roschon Johnson?
I did not. Let's see here. Roschon Johnson is going to make the Bears backfield hard to call. Could he take over number one for them? Yeah, of course. We've talked about this before with me and Emerson. Andrew and I have talked about this. I mean, Khalil Herbert didn't look amazing today, but the Bears overall didn't look amazing. I expect better days. But you also saw that Khalil Herbert was a pretty large focal point of the offense, until they got down from behind quite a bit. So I still like him a lot there. I feel like it's going to be tough for any one of these guys to just have a clear-cut bell cow role for the Bears. Rushing attack. I could see a situation where Roschon is carving out 10 to 12 touches, but full-blown RB1, I doubt it with just what they have there. They were using Foreman as well, even passing to Foreman out of the backfield. They were trying to do a lot of different things.
Yeah, you're lucky this isn't going to be a podcast featuring the talk on Justin Fields' quarterback play, but Roschon Johnson, I do think, this is a full-on blown committee backfield, and, Khalil Herbert, I do think it will be the lead of it, and, the only first starter for the foreseeable future. But like I said, hopefully that is the last of the internet issues. I'll be connecting up to my Wi-Fi, like I said, very shortly. Up on the next question that I have up here, that is Tyler from the SGPN Fantasy Football Discord. All of my tight ends are bad. Dalton Schultz, Gerald Everett, Pat Freiermuth. Should I pick up Hayden Hurst? And if so, which tight end should I drop him for? I'll lead off here. I would be dropping. That's really tough. I'd probably drop Gerald Everett. I just don't know. I just don't know. I just didn't see the Chargers offense click once again. We thought Justin Herbert would be throwing the ball more downfield this game. It started to happen towards the end of the game there. They started to get a little bit more of a shootout, but for most of the game, it was still kind of dink and dunking a little bit. Gerald Everett, I'm just not sure how much upside he has if this offense isn't going to be prolific offense that we anticipate it's going to be. So I would be dropping Gerald Everett for Hayden Hurst, and Hayden Hurst is definitely a priority waiver wire ad. I think he is going to be leaned on heavily by Bryce Young. What are your thoughts?
I'm okay with that. I was going to ask you, who would you prefer between Hayden Hurst or Hunter Henry? I would still prefer Hayden Hurst just because I like Bryce Young more than Mac Jones. Mac Jones did rally a bit in that game, but he was still started off pretty bad. And had he actually been playing well from the start, they could have actually, put a nail in it or even finished, strong. But he's someone that I'm just not on for this year. I see the Patriots starting off 0-5, maybe 0-6. So I would prefer Hurst in that scenario, but I know that Henry's another waiver wire favorite right now.
Hey, Hunter Henry is certainly somebody I'd be targeting as well, because this was the camp rumblings. I know Mike Gesicki was the hot ad and he was ahead of Hunter Henry for a long time, but recent camp reports suggested otherwise, that it was Hunter Henry, the one that was established connection with Mac Jones. It was Hunter Henry was going to be the starting tight end in this offense. So I think that is a smart pickup as well. I think those are probably the two likely priority tight end waiver wire ads this week. Isaiah Likely can probably be returned to waiver wires, and so can Noah Gray, I think, as well. Going over to Jamie, I was wondering where you were, Jamie. Every time you're not here to start off the show, I'm always like, where's Jamie at? Waiver wire showed Roschon only 31% owned. Pick him up now before it's too late. Averaged 4 yards a carry to Herbert's 3 yards, and he was the leading wide receiver with 6 catches, not to mention his touchdown. Of course, Jamie, that's why would we expect
little bit of garbage time baked into that, though. He collected some production at the end of the game when things were well out of hand, but again, we were just talking about him, Jamie. We're all
Got
about
the
it.
targets.
We just don't believe that there's really going to be any one priority running back in that backfield. So Roshan should definitely be targeted, though. If you have the roster spot, I don't think if all your running backs performed well, and you got your guys already, just don't be too thirsty, don't be too desperate.
Don't be too thirsty. I like that one. All right, going over to Sarah from Twitter, or X, is that what we're calling it now? Twitter X, whatever.
I don't know. I still call it Twitter, but maybe that's the
I
boomer
guess we
in
need
me.
to start switching. I don't know if it's I guess it is officially X now. I don't know why you get rid of a established brand already, but just dissecting Elon Musk's crazy business plan is a podcast for another day. I want to drop Kenny Pickett and pick up Baker Mayfield. Do you believe Baker is a reliable starter going forward?
About as reliable as Kenny Pickett would have been. I mean, between the two, the rest of the season, who would you rather have? I think I would take Kenny Pickett. Yeah.
Yes, Kenny Pickett. Yeah. I didn't expect it to be this bad. I did not think he was going to play great this game. I thought it'd be better. I do think that. I was a little bit disappointed. Deontay Johnson is out with an injury now, who longs with a hamstring injury. But I do think better days are ahead for this offense. This was a very tough matchup against one of the, if not the best defense in the NFL. That was always going to be difficult. The offense was a mess. Give it another couple weeks. I have Kenny Pickett as a strong quarterback 2 this year. If you were a super flex league, I think he's a good option in your second quarterback. I think better days are ahead for Kenny Pickett. There's a lot to work with in this offense. The offensive line is much improved compared to last year. At least the interior, the tackles got a little bit beat up today, but they're not going to be going up against that front every single game. So, kicking over to you, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I think I agree with you. I mean, Kenny Pickett, right? Yeah, that should be the answer season long. But I just pulled up Baker's schedule. You know who looked really bad this week was the Chicago Bears defense. You know who Baker Mayfield gets to play next week? Chicago Bears defense. Ouch. Baker could be a nice streaming option in week 2. I mean, the Bears defense looked atrocious, making Jordan Love look like a superhero. I mean, there could be something there. If you need a dart throw, if you're super desperate, Baker Mayfield week 2, there could be something there. It's not a strong conviction that I have for this take. I wouldn't lean too much of your fob on this, but I think there's something there.
Baker Mayfield's upside is so limited. He played a tough game today. He played within his means, but that is not a fantasy quarterback. I don't think. I think Kenny Pickett has the upside. I think he has a little bit of rushing ability as well. I think, like I said, I'm more of a risky taker. We know what we're going to get from Baker Mayfield. I feel like he's not going to be more than a low-end quarterback 2 likely, and you're just hoping that he can provide enough quarterback play for Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. And, like I said, I've already talked to nausea about my disappointment in Rachaad White today. It's once again a podcast for another show, but hopefully he gets Rachaad White a little bit more involved as well. Before we just dive into another we'll just be a half hour straight after this of ad breaks, but we're going to give one more shout out to our sponsors. One of them is Hall of Fame Bets. Win bigger by betting smarter this NFL season with Hall of Fame Bets, the sports betting analytics platform for parlays, player props, and game lines. Research every NFL, NBA, MLB, and soccer bet with historical stats and data. Enter any parlay idea into Hall of Fame Bet's revolutionary parlay optimizer tool to get hit rates broken down by leg, as well as an expected probability for the entire parlay. Sort all players by hit rate for any bet to learn which players are hot and which picks have value. Stop betting in the dark and join over 30,000 users researching with Hall of Fame Bets to craft more intelligent, data-driven parlays. Download the Hall of Fame Bets app or visit hofbets.com and use code SGPN to get 50% off your first month today. Start researching, start winning with Hall of Fame Bets. We are also brought to you by our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy has a way to play alongside with your favorite football team all season long with their fantasy pick'em game. You pick between 2 to 5 players, select whether they'll go higher or lower or on one of their stats. Then do what you usually spend your Sundays doing, watching the games. You can win up to 20 times your money in a single game by going 5 for 5. It's a fantasy game, but you can win real money. This, some of my favorites I love betting the unders on these big players. I love betting the unders on the Patrick Mahomes, the Josh Allen, the Stephon Diggs. Those kind of lines are the classic ones that the more novice players like to bet the overs on, and then you can find extreme value. So watch along, make your picks, and maybe make a little cash over on Underdog's mobile app or website, underdogfantasy.com. When you sign up with promo code SGPN, Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code SGPN. And if you wouldn't mind, if you are one of our listeners on YouTube, John, Jamie, if you wouldn't mind clicking that like, subscribe button, it means so much to us. We would really appreciate it. Diving into the rest of these waiver wire questions. Sean from the SGPN Fantasy Football Discord asks, how much fab should I spend on Puka Nacua? Starting with, he has a $100 fab budget.
8 to 10%.
8 to 10%. That seems about right. He's one of those more players I like to bet. So I've heard a whole podcast, or at least a whole topic recently, about like waiver wire, like, what they spend. And I think, he was suggesting spending like, in sixes, like, 26, 16, things like that. That's a little high for me if I don't want to go up there. So like
26%. Holy shit.
Well, he was talking about, I'm just talking, if you were spending as opposed to like 22%. So he would suggest maybe spending maybe upwards of 16% or maybe 6 or something like a number like that. But I always go 2 over. If I think a player's worth $5, I want him, I'll go like $7 just to beat the $5 beat the $6 one. And then, a couple of players you might be meeting at the $7 one. He's one of those guys. I wouldn't want to go 12. So I'd probably go somewhere around the 7. So $7 on a $100 budget. I know he was the lead wide receiver today. However, this could be a really bad Rams offense still. The offensive line is not very good. Cooper Kupp won't be there. Cam Akers is being phased out quicker than we even anticipated. So this offense is not someone I project to be a high grade unit still. So he's not a priority ad for me. And also wide receivers, I think, especially a wide receiver in a bad offense like that, you can find him anywhere. You can pick him up off the waiver wire every week throughout the season. So, I like to save my waiver wire, my budget for the running backs. We're going to see a lot of running backs get injured. I like to save my money for a super flex league, a quarterback or somebody like that, a waiver wire tight end that when I need that. So wide receiver is the most saturated position in fantasy football. So, what's your thoughts on that? Maybe like spending running back versus wide receivers. Has that have any effect on you?
No, it's just always about the situation and my situation. You could be looking at Puka Nacua and you may have Cooper Kupp now in your IR spot. You may have, Jonathan Taylor missing from your lineup. You may have Deontay Johnson now out. We just discussed his injury. You may just be missing players now because of injuries or just, your poor calculation of your offseason takes or your offseason beliefs in some players. Tell you what, CD Lamb's not looking too great right now. He's only got 2 catches a day. Not someone that you're going to be taking out of your lineup, but if you drafted him and Cooper Kupp, top of your draft, not looking too good. So sometimes you have to, spend a little bit more, if you want to get a little bit more aggressive and also make sure that your, league mates aren't leveling up as well. I say 8 to 10% on Puka, really just based off of what I saw, not necessarily just like, oh, hey, here's what you need to spend on a week 1 wide receiver with your fob. I just like the fact that he showed up. He clearly has a connection with Stafford, and Van Jefferson was nowhere to be seen. I think he only had about 3 or 4 catches. Was definitely an underwhelming performance for him. I was questioning starting Puka with Cooper Kupp out, assuming that he, Tyler Higbee, and Van Jefferson would have good games. I was more surprised about Tutu Atwell and that performance. That really came out of nowhere. So just because I also saw him play very well, again, I would probably split hairs there. I would maybe, if I have one spot available, I could target both of those guys and throw $8 on both and see whichever one comes home. And I'll still feel like I'm getting equitable value either way.
I would be targeting their teammate, Kyren Williams, if he's on the waiver wire in your fantasy football league. That is my preferred.
If you need a running back, yeah.
He's somebody I would be willing. I would spend 12. He'd be somebody I would spend upwards of $12 to $17 on, depending on my running back situation. If I was super desperate, maybe even 20% of my budget. Very, very desperate, I would probably not do that.
Who would you rather spend that on? I'm curious because I don't know if we have a question. No, we do have a question about that player. I'll wait for it. Never mind.
Okay. Oh, this is kind of funny. Friday Morning Wood from Reddit asks, how many edibles should I eat before spending fab on Robert Woods?
They really should have shared the milligrams. I guess a few, I think, is the answer. A few I think that's a good answer. A few edibles, and you can, I guess, appropriately then add Robert Woods to your team. Bobby Trees.
Bobby Trees. Hey, I was actually on Robert Woods before the season. What do young wide receivers love? That is wide receivers that are going to be in the exact spot that their coaches tell them that they're going to be. That is the veteran wide receiver, Robert Woods, very experienced. Yes, when the coaches draw up the play, how it's supposed to go, Robert Woods is going to be in that right spot. And, for a young quarterback like CJ Stroud, that is perfect. I thought Robert Woods was going to be the wide receiver one in this offense. It's not surprising to me. I was pleasantly surprised by Nico Collins. I think that's, he's another guy. If he's on the waiver wire in your league, depending on your situation.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's another guy I'd spend $7 on, just a little over $5 to try to get him. Once again, I'm not really targeting wide receivers in week one. Normally, my wide receivers are pretty filled out already, mostly the ways I draft. But if you did go running back heavy, you need a wide receiver, absolutely target these players. Robert Woods, though, I think is going to be a low-end flex option a lot of weeks this year. Jamie checking in the chat. I missed out on a $10 bet parlay to win $100 by Higbee missing 1 yard. That's the tough game with parlays. That's why they like you to do parlays. Parlays are extremely hard to hit, and Vegas makes their money on parlays. So I've been trying to shift away from the parlays, even though seems very lucrative to do so. I've been trying to just bet more single bets more than anything lately. Moving down the list here, I'm definitely going to try to touch on which question you were looking at here, but up next here is Terry Harmon from Facebook asks, I want to add Jerome Ford, but don't want to waste my waiver priority. Is he worth it? Josh Kelly is also available, considering both.
I like Josh Kelly more. That was the player that I wanted to bring up. Is Josh Kelly looks like someone you may want to spend a little bit more on, and that's just because of how we've seen Kellen Moore deploy a rushing attack with multiple backs in Zeke Elliott and Tony Pollard. You saw both Eckler and Kelly take at least 16 carries today. And as you said, like the passing offense wasn't as impressive. It really was the rushing offense that carried them and kept them in this game. So I'm okay with it. I would probably put that priority on Kelly over Jerome Ford. Jerome Ford, you're sharp. Yeah, he got a lot of carries, but he didn't do a lot with them, So it kind of suspect. I'm going to favor Kelly probably, at least for right now.
I'm going to lean on the guy who's playing with the running back who probably can't handle a lot of carries. I agree. I'm going with Joshua Kelly myself. Of course, both off, I slightly prefer the Los Angeles offense too. I think there's a little bit more upside in Austin Eckler has never handled, how many times has he handled over 200 rush attempts? I used to know the stat off the top of my head. I don't think it's very many times. Either way, not many times in his career. So there's going to be plenty of rush attempts in this offense available for the second player. Joshua Kelly appears to be that man up and had a nice game today. So he is certainly somebody to be checking out. Like I said, I prefer, instead of grabbing that hot wide receiver from that week, I'd like to stash those second string running backs. That's what I like to do on my redraft benches. I usually like to draft firm wide receivers that I can start every week and just have a plethora of running backs available to me later on. Going over to Sean Friedman from SGPN Fantasy Football Discord. I have Rashad Penny and DeAndre Swift. Who should I drop? That's a tough one. I think obviously Rashad Penny, you drop the healthy scratch.
I guess DeAndre Swift had a carry and a catch, 2 touches, something like that. It was bad. That sucks. That was it's kind of a mic drop question. Like, it's this bad.
You dropped the
yeah.
healthy scratch. Jamie, my man, loves Kenny Gainwell. It's a victory day, Jamie, for you. Yes. I drafted a ton of Kenny Gainwell in best ball too, so I'm very happy.
Rashad Penny is the answer. I mean, you really hope that DeAndre Swift can do more. I mean, otherwise he's not going to be far behind Rashad Penny off your roster.
No, he's not. I think I have to think better days are maybe ahead for somebody in this offense. I don't think Kenny Gainwell can just be the lead. It's tough. I know DeAndre Swift. Although I have DeAndre Swift on so many dynasty teams, I've already kind of given up hope. It really actually stings a lot of those teams because
You know
a
what?
couple of years ago I spent quite a bit to get him.
It was such a weird
Ja-
game though, too. Like they won by 5, and this is a game where like Ramondre Stevenson wasn't a factor whatsoever. Like this was a weird game. Like I believe that Gainwell is the number one, but part of me also believes that he got maybe a fair amount of this production because they just knew that they were going to have the game well in hand, even though at one point it felt like they didn't. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't know. It's very tough. I think I'd like to trust their camp reps. Kenny Gainwell's getting the vast majority of camp reps. I
Yeah.
think it's
Yeah.
going to be Kenny Gainwell this year. DeAndre Swift, I do think is going to be more of a factor in the pass game than he was today. I'm not sure what that'll lead to. He needs to get some work though. I mean, he's too talented to leave on the bench. I can't think this is the end for DeAndre Swift. Him just dying on the Philadelphia Eagles bench with Kenny Gainwell starting, but anyways, we'll go over to kick it over to Jay. Actually, Jay, we have a question from Jamie up top here first before we click it over to the Game of Thrones, Jon Snow. Emerson, the Chiefs. Rashee Rice, a must add? No.
Yeah.
Nope.
That's an
He does not play
overreaction to
enough
Kelsey
snaps
being
yet.
out.
I think, if he's free, if you're like tired, if you don't like somebody on your bench and, you're already done with them, if you have J.K. Dobbins and you don't, I would not be targeting Rashee Rice particularly this week off a touchdown. That's what's driving his production. I think you can probably get him in a few weeks when he starts playing a little bit more. Now, I hope the Chiefs try to kick it over to somebody here because it's a mess in that wide receiver room. But what's your thoughts on Rashee Rice?
Yeah, it's a pass for me. I mean, if you can get him for free after waivers clear, then I'm good with that. But I wouldn't spend any sort of fob on him or anything like that. It's just an overreaction to Kelsey being out.
I completely agree. Over to Jon Snow coming out with his new HBO show at the beginning of January 2023. We're very excited about that. Now that J.K. Dobbins is out, who will be their next running back? We were talking about this a little bit earlier. I think it's, Justice Hill got the touchdowns today, and I think he'll be like people will look at the fantasy points scored and assume it's Justice Hill. Gus Edwards was the better running back today. He was far more productive. Justice Hill slammed against the wall 6 times in his goal, happened to be the goal line back in those opportunities. But like I said, it could be Justice Hill, but I think I think it's more than likely. I still think it's going to be Gus Edwards, but Justice Hill is somebody I'd be willing to spend upwards of 7, we were talking earlier, 7 or 8% of my fab budget. You have any thoughts to add there?
I think the answer is going to be Kareem Hunt. I think that's what the answer is going to be. I could be wrong. But no, I think it's probably going to wind up being a free agent. They may go a week with Gus and Justice Hill, and if that's the case, then I'm rolling out Gus. That's who I like between the two. We had someone in the chat hyping up Puka. We talked about Puka a little bit, spending 8 to 10% on him. Who is or what is the next question we have?
Tamron47 from Reddit asked, should I be worried about dropping Rashad Bateman? He didn't impress me, and I already had my concerns about him. Starting him, thinking he would perform better with Andrews out. Rashad Bateman is a former first-round pick out of Minnesota. Very impressive collegiate career. Dealt with injuries his first 2 years in the NFL. Zay Flowers, who's definitely the prime target today, and we did not see the step forward from Lamar Jackson that we were expecting to see with his new offensive coordinator.
No.
I think better days, of course, are ahead for this offense. But if Lamar Jackson, if it's much of the same, if Lamar Jackson isn't going to take this step forward, that every fantasy analyst seemed to predict this season as a passer, then I don't think there is room for Rashad Bateman to succeed. You won't know when to start him. because that's what's been in line with Lamar Jackson, his career. He's only produced one top 20 fantasy receiver in his career, and that was Marquise Brown one season. It happened one time. So, Lamar Jackson has not been an upper echelon passer as of yet, and we didn't see that this past Sunday either. So, Rashad Bateman, I'm not dropping him yet, but, a couple more weeks, he's somebody, he's on the fringe.
Yeah, I mean, there's got to be a very clear answer when you're dropping them, on your waiver wire. I don't want to. I get. Would you rather have him or Puka right now? Would you still ride it out with Bateman?
I'd ride it out with Bateman. Ooh. I would ride it out with Bateman. It's tough. I know you see that tough. Week one, and I know you see that week one, and you want to not even change that, your mind,
but you just know because now Cooper Kupp's on the IR. We know that he's out for at least another 3 weeks. So I think that just makes it a little bit easier if you're in need. Like if you're thirsty, as I said earlier, I think that may be the answer. Because I don't see Rashad Bateman getting more than 6 or 7 targets on a weekly basis. We just saw Puka Nacua come down with 9 catches?
That's true. However, I'm betting on, I would want to bet on, like I said, I'm taking the home run swing here. I think you can find a lot of Pukas on the waiver. I don't think that's going to be him every single week either. That's just me betting against that. I don't think he is. I don't think he is the bona fide wide receiver one in this offense. I think it's going to change a lot. Tyler Higbee's going to get his, and this offense likely won't be very good, but it's close, but I'm holding on to Rashad Bateman for now because I've always liked the talent as a player. He just has not seemed to be able to put it together yet. Going over to one more question from our friend Jon Snow, who once again coming out in January, HBO. Catch the brand new Dragon Show. One more. I got Joe Burrow, who crapped out today. Should I play him again next week? Or pick up the sound watching or Trevor Lawrence on the waiver wire? And which one? Did I read that wrong? Am I on edibles right now?
No.
Is it? Okay. All right. Deshaun Watson. He corrected himself. Sorry. I was, I always,
I guess I take T-Law. I mean, Jacksonville looked good. Running game was good. Receivers were good. Trevor Lawrence was good. He threw an interception. It was a tip ball. I'm not going to hold it against him. I'll go Trevor Lawrence there.
I can't believe it's Trevor Lawrence on the waiver wire. That's pretty crazy. I would not don't drop Joe Burrow. Don't drop Joe.
Well, don't drop him. No one said that.
I think I'm going to start. I always start my stats. I mean, my goodness, it's Joe Burrow. He had a calf injury. He has Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. I'm not thinking too hard about this. Trevor Lawrence, although he is improving, I think he is a very good quarterback in the NFL. I don't think he's proved yet he is in that same tier as these guys. I'm starting Joe Burrow a couple more weeks, and if he disappoints again, I would start considering it. But it is Joe Burrow for me. Trevor Lawrence, though, if he's on the waiver wire, you can probably drop somebody to pick him up as security because that's still a quarterback one. You want to be rostering all those in single quarterback formats even. So I like Trevor Lawrence and Deshaun Watson. If you guys don't know who is listening, we have a bet to shave our heads. Jared Goff or Deshaun Watson most fantasy points. I have Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson outscored Jared Goff this week, but he did outscore him. But I'll tell you this, I didn't feel good. I didn't feel good.
I was feeling really good for the start for a while there. My God. And then he came out of nowhere with the rushing touchdown. I was like, oh, that's not good. That's not good. But
Deshaun Watson, he's missing some throws. It's not like he's just not looking like the same guy.
What I'll say is that both of our guys did things well and did things bad. So that's what I'll say. Even though you are in the lead, I will say that Jared Goff still looked good. He could have had a second one. He needed that second touchdown.
That's what I mean. Like Deshaun Watson has all this ability. He can almost fall backwards into 20 fantasy points, but still, like it's so him missing these easy throws, these just bonehead decisions. We expected
There's a couple of really, really bad throws. I want to say like the interception was like dead in the chest of the guy or something like that. Like there were some very poor calculated passing attempts on his part, to say the least.
I've been adamant about Deshaun Watson this season. And it's just very crazy to me that a player of his age, 27 or so, can't seem to get back to where he was. He was talked about being the 1A, 1B to Patrick Mahomes just a
Right.
couple
Yeah.
years ago. It was, people were talking about on ESPN, it's if Deshaun Watson was on the Chiefs, look what he'd be better than Patrick Mahomes. That was not very long time ago. For next week, I haven't looked at the next week's schedule yet off the top of my head for either of those two. Who's the Bengals and Trevor Lawrence playing? I'm going to look that up really quick, unless you know it off the top of your head.
Let me see. I can
because I don't know the schedule because I haven't.
I can tell you that the Browns are
because,
playing the Steelers. I know that, but
no, I haven't looked at those players because normally they're not, of course, on the waiver wire. But Trevor Lawrence is going to be playing next week the Kansas City Chiefs. Man, I think the
Burrow
Kansas
gets
City
Baltimore.
Chiefs, Burrow gets Baltimore. Man,
Baltimore
that's really tough. That's really tough.
Baltimore did not look good. Like their defense was okay, but like it was Houston, and there was a few times where it's just like, what are we doing here? Why are there? Why is Baltimore just not absolutely running away with this game? So I don't know. That's a toughie.
I think I'm going to start Joe Burrow. I know it seems like you want to start against the Kansas City Chiefs defense. However, I think it's a stouter defense that people give it credit for. I think they're building a lot around the defensive line. It has a good secondary, very good linebackers. Once we get our horses back on the defensive line, I think better days are ahead. Browns going 2-0 before we lose a bunch of games. Yeah, Jamie, it'll be interesting. You whooped up on those Bengals today. Nice. I was glad to see you shut up the Bengals fans. The Chief fan, man, they were getting loud these last couple of days. So I was happy to see you shut them down. Let's do one more, and then we'll give maybe the people listening in the live chat one more opportunity to ask any of their potential questions if they would like to. I am going to see if I can find a particularly great question. We've already talked about Eden Hurst. So we'll go to a general question. How do you manage your early season free agent auction budget, and how much do you conserve for the second half of the season?
It's all dependent on my record. It's, the comfier I am, the less I spend. If I'm 1-0, I'm spending less than I am when I'm 0-1. Now, obviously, when I do lose and I'm, trying to make up ground, whether it be from poor performances or injuries or just playing matchups or just making sure that my league mates aren't getting a level up on a particular player, I still want to be practical. So like yourself, I tend not to overspend. I think you had a good bit of advice, target what you think they're worth. And then if you think that you really want them, then pay a little bit more, et cetera. I think that's a good point. But overall, it's really just about knowing your league. I mean, you're going to know your league best, and you're going to know what players and what owners are going to spend stupid amounts. Try to get them to spend those stupid amounts early. You definitely want to get the people that are going to spend $44 on a player when you have $100 fob. If you know that they're going to be out there in your league and they're going to be active, then get them to spend that money, and then you can prowl the streets later in the season. The leagues that I've won when I've brought home championships and made money, it's always been because I've had a nice war chest in the last 3 to 4 weeks. But that's also because in those leagues I was getting off to a good start. I wasn't losing week 1, 2, or 3, etc.
It comes down to like, you think you can find Alvin Kamara? Can you find that like just game-winning player? And a lot of the time it's this. If it's a second-string running back who's purely getting this opportunity because he's just the next guy up, we know who he is. That's not a guy I want to go spend 30, 40, 50% of my fab budget on just because he has that role now. If there is a young ascending player who has a great game, that is maybe when you potentially get aggressive with your fab budget. That's maybe somebody breaking out, emerging as a star in this league, or at least, for a stretch of time. So, that's somebody who I'd be. But yes, I think it's important to save your waiver wire, at least a portion of it, for those playoff matchups. There's going to be the running back position just gets so rough during those fantasy weeks. A lot of the time, the fantasy championship game is not there isn't a bunch of star-studded running backs. It is whoever's alive at the end of the year, second, third string players who happen just to be starting that week. I was trying to think of just the most random names. Over the years, I've just put the craziest players into playoff matchups and won, just random weeks. Rashad, was that crazy Rashad Penny stretch last year or the year before?
The year before.
The year before. Oh my gosh. Just Rashad Penny tearing through the fantasy football playoffs. Just random things. Pretty wild stuff. But we'll end up here with a comment from Jamie. Cowboys using Turpin a lot now, but it'll be an overreaction to fantasy players who don't pay attention to game scripts. Yes, I am sure. I haven't gotten to analyze at this Cowboys game much at all. I was on a podcast with my buddy Seth Dywald that'll come out in a couple of days, just right before this one. So,
I'll do your homework for you. The Giants suck. That's the analysis.
God, right? This is crazy. I just can't believe this is another just like the New York. I hate to call you out. The New York Giants and Chicago Bears hype trains this offseason. People, of course, the Vegas didn't think necessarily they were going to be that great, but they had their hardcore believers, and it's a tough day for you, I imagine.
I mean, yeah, for sure. But Fields played a lot better than Dan Jones. Dan Jones has 59 passing yards. It's the fourth quarter.
The $40 million man.
Yeah. Come on now. There's a bit of a difference here. At least the Bears were putting up some points. To me, the Bears, it was more about just very, very bland play calling. And I don't know, very bad start and just also really bad defense. So all those things combined, they're not good.
I'll hit you with one thought. Always hire offensive coordinators as your head coach, because you want to be nursing the play of your young quarterback. Defense, much more. We've seen what great defenses have done against Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl these last couple of years. It's more about the quarterback play. But we'll end it with that. Justin, anything you want to shout out, what you and Andrew are doing this week at SGPN, anything we got coming up?
Yeah, we'll have our starter sit show for week 2 on Thursday. Be sure to jump in the chat for that. Going to be a bunch of good stuff there. Follow us on Spotify at SGPN Fantasy Football. Tuesday night, I'll be on with Pat Callahan, This Week in Football on his channel over on YouTube with Jacob Sports. You can check that out. How about yourself? You working on anything?
I will be producing a article for SGPN every week based on players due for touchdown progression, positive regression, whatever the argument is. I haven't got into. I'm not a grammar police, so whatever you want to call it. I will be, flex players depending on touchdowns and things like that. I highlighted Tyler Algier as a player this past week that I thought could be one of those players. I thought Bijan Robinson would be used heavily between the 20s because of his ability to catch passes, and then Tyler Algier would be vulturing those touchdowns. So I'll be looking for more plays like that. Over Player Profiler, I'll also be talking about the biggest storylines of the week every single week in an article, producing multiple shows over there. Check out Player Profiler today, the Big Tilt and the Juice on Fridays over there. And of course, I host the Cocktail Hour Fantasy Football Podcast for the Face Off Sports Network. Anthony, Aaron Schill, those guys are fantastic. So definitely check them out too. With that, thanks for joining us, everybody. Jamie, everybody in the live chat. John Reed making fun of my internet once again. I get it, John. This is the last time. I have my I got it. You see this? I got it in the mail today. I just didn't have time with me working. I have it. I'm connecting up to the internet last time. This is it.
What is that? Your Starlink password? Your Starlink?
We had a strong and a half hour there. Okay, we went through 35 minutes without any internet issues. Okay.
After you unplugged your router and plugged it back in.
Yeah, I did do that. So this is it.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Enjoy
that's fantastic.
The last time y'all are going to laugh at me. Internet issues are over. I'll be hooked up next time. So with that, have a great weekend, everybody. Thank you so much. I appreciate y'all.